I interviewed Joe Montana last week, and I told you about it after I got it set up. He's now in this fan-controlled football league, which seems to be doing well. It's getting good ratings. They have some NFL players in it. It looks pretty cool. Anyway, he's an investor. He's a chief strategy officer, and he's promoting it. So that company reached out to me and said, "Do you want to interview Joe Montana?" Yeah, absolutely. And my plan was,
Well, wait, I want to stop. You then did the key thing. You said, will it be a one-on-one?
yes, will it be? I didn't want to do a group thing.
Right. You said, and they said, yes, it will.
Yes, it
That
will.
was the key assertion that you made.
And of course, I want to ask about football. He wants to talk about his product. I want to ask about the Niners. He wants to talk about fan-controlled football. So I figured I'll ask 10 minutes worth of questions on fan-controlled football and 5 minutes worth of questions on the 49ers. That should be fair. But I'm not going to tell him beforehand, hey, is it okay if I ask Niner questions? Because what would they say? Yeah, we have to see him first.
Right.
I don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. So I just, wrapped up my stuff I let him go on and on about his thing, and I was interested, and I asked the questions, and then finally I said, okay, Joe, would it be all right if I asked you a few 49ers questions? And he said, yeah, that should be fine. We have some time. Real easy. And I thought he gave really thoughtful, smart, yet simple answers. Like Steve Young can give you a very smart, thoughtful answer that goes on forever and hits a million different topics. Joe was very focused. What do they got to do at quarterback? Well, Jimmy's good when healthy, but he's not healthy enough. So it's time to move on. Not like, let me look at it at 18 different ways. He's not healthy enough. It's time to move on. They should get a young guy. He was very clear. But what he's like, I'd never interviewed him before. I've interviewed Steve Young many times. And it was interesting, Joe. Like, Joe, he kind of struck me as like a royal. Like a royal. There's something, he has a quiet tone. He's almost shy. But at the same time, he knows what's expected of him because he's been famous forever. And he's very articulate. He speaks at the right pace. He speaks at the right tone. He knows he's very, like he didn't talk over himself. He's better than me. I'm from all over the place. So I was very impressed. And he was also, if he had a controversial opinion, he wasn't afraid to say it. Joe, he was like talking to the king. It felt like talking to the king, who was nice, very nice, but also the king.
Okay, I have some questions.
Sure.
Before you got on the phone call, say 5 minutes before, how did you feel? What was your feeling? Were you nervous? Were you excited? You're going to talk to Joe Montana. How did it feel?
I was nervous.
You were nervous. And
yeah.
Why do you think you were nervous?
I was nervous that he would think I was a bad interviewer, that it wouldn't go well, that it would be a bust and it would be my fault, that I wouldn't rise to the occasion. Not that he wouldn't be good.
Were you nervous that he wouldn't be nice to you because you were my son?
No, because I've seen how older athletes who used to not like you think about you now. Jerry Rice was so nice that day, and it surprised me, and I figured he'd be like that. But I gotta say, I started with, hey, Joe, I'm Lowell Cohn's son. And his attitude, what he said at first was, oh, okay. It wasn't like, oh, that's great. It was like, oh, okay. And so I said, he just had back surgery. He says hello. He's working through some things, and he was very compassionate. Oh, well, give Lowell my best. And then at the end of the call, he said, again, tell Lowell that I'm thinking about him and give him my best. So that was
very sweet.
Yeah.
While you were interviewing Joe, were you nervous during the interview to ask questions, to push him, things like that?
Yes, absolutely. I was very, very gentle. Can I please ask you some 49ers questions? Like, I was almost apologizing and he was, hey, man, he's very cool. He was very cool. Hey, man, it's cool.
When you ordinarily interview people, are you nervous like that?
No.
So it was different.
Yeah. Now when I interview the players, like, they're 10 years younger than me. It's different. A lot of them are just getting started. This was like interviewing, not someone that I grew up watching, because he's even before my time. It was like the equivalent of interviewing Willie Mays or Muhammad Ali or one of the 5 greatest athletes ever. And I just didn't want to blow it. I wanted to make it memorable. And he came through so much. He was great. I was very pleased with it.
It's interesting, Iggy, how you can be very aggressive and detached when you interview 49ers. But when it came to Joe Montana, you were blushing.
I was blushing, yes.
You were almost like when that time with Monte Ellis. Tell me with Monte Ellis.
I was 20. I was an intern at my brother's software company, and I was just started the blog with you, and I was trying to get into journalism, and you were like, you know what? Why don't you come to the Warriors with me? They were so nice. They always say yes. And Monte Ellis had just signed his big 5-year extension or something. He hadn't ruined his leg yet on a moped. And we were going there. It was the big Monte day, and they said, hey, not only can you come, Grant, ask a question. And I said, okay.
Brandon Ritter, the head of public relations, said, Grant, ask a question.
And he gave me like a day's notice too. I had the whole night to think about it and the whole day. And I got there and I had nothing. And I sat there. I stood there silently.
Stood right next to him.
Right next to him. You asked a million questions. I remember that. And then we walked away and Raymond was like, what happened? I said, I don't know, man. I just froze. I don't know. So it was at least I didn't freeze. I had a bad experience with Monte and a bad experience with Andrew Luck. But the Joe Montana one, it was good. In retrospect, I probably should have asked him to turn his camera on. I was scared. He just showed up with the camera off, and I was like, all right, well, that's Joe Montana's. Okay. Maybe. All right. What am I going to do?
Iggy, I think it's adorable that, you know what? Probably if I interviewed someone from my youth, I probably would still be that way. Or if I interviewed Muhammad Ali, who knows? What I want to give my impressions of Joe. When Joe was, starting out and then became the great Joe Montana, he was a young man and I was still a young man as well, although I'm older than him. And I was not the most tactful person, and I was very aggressive. I was a New Yorker, and which you're aggressive to begin with, verbally aggressive. And I wanted to make a splash at the Chronicle, so I was very aggressive. And I think, in retrospect, I was sometimes unfair to Joe and came on too strong. And Joe could stand up for himself, and he's also shy and sensitive. Mm-hmm. And he didn't like me and didn't trust me. Mm-hmm. He, for example, was reluctant to talk to me. It didn't matter because, Bill Walsh would talk to me and anybody else, but he was reluctant, and he was reluctant to talk to Ira Miller. But we both noticed, in fairness to Joe, he talked to everybody else. He talked to all the other reporters. So it wasn't a media thing. It was a Lowell and Ira, two guys from New York, two very aggressive guys. But, when we see Joe now, because sometimes you go to dinners or, stuff, or when they had the service when poor Dwight died, Joe and I, Joe came over to me. They had a reception afterward at the Fairmont Hotel, and Joe came over to me and we chatted. I wouldn't say warmly, but it was cordial. We spent time with each other. It was cordial. I know he's that way with Ira as well. And I want to say we've all grown up. And what I feel about Joe now is that he's a lovely grown-up. Whenever I see him, I like him. I'm impressed by him. And I'm happy to have known him and chronicled his career.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what my impression of him was or what I was expecting, but I thought he was really generous with his time, really bright, and really articulate. I mean, I'm so used to celebrities who are my age and younger, and they've been celebrities since they were probably in middle school because they're tracked by these websites as potential prodigies. They've been millionaires since they were like 22. Even though Joe Montana is the greatest quarterback of all time, he still didn't have that kind of privileged life of fame and money. And he's still working. He's still trying to make a buck. And it's just interesting. He seemed way more normal than even Jimmy Garoppolo.
Oh, that is such an interesting insight.
Yeah,
I understand. Jimmy Garoppolo, in his own mind, is more of a celebrity than Joe Montana is in his mind.
Yes. And talking to me one-on-one would have been weirder, I think, for Jimmy. He doesn't do stuff like that. Joe Montana was talking not only to me, but it was guy after guy. Who knows? He's just trying to promote the FCF. It's like, wow, Joe Montana. Okay, well, great. let's talk for 15 minutes at 8:30 on a Wednesday morning. It just seemed like you're the king of the world. Why are you doing this? But he's actually he's way more down to earth than I expected. Way more down to earth than I expected.
You know, I'm so happy to hear that. I'm really happy to hear that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. We had a couple donations. What's that?
Joe, if you're watching this, we gave you an A+.
A+. I hope you gave me just a passing grade. I was trying to impress you. Thank you again for letting me ask about the Niners and ask you about the FCF.